Yeah. Good evening. We're learning as a chus for Shlema for Ilan Chai Basarach and for Shira Bashalamis. We're on the bottom of Vav Amid Aleph. We're really on the. Is that right? Yeah. We're on the bottom of Vav. We're really on the top of Vav Amid Beis. We just have to go back so that we'll be able to talk intelligently. So we were talking about the general question. The general question that we're talking about for this block is the question of when someone brings a carbon oila, or it doesn't have to be a carbon oila, it could be a chatas, any carbon, after after he's mafresh the carbon. It's not something relevant for a chatas because a chatas only goes for one avera, but an oila can be for numerous averas. What happens if he is over on an essay that the oila could be mechaper on after he was already mafresh the carbon? That means certainly after he brings the carbon, after you do this, you shech the carbon, it's too late. As a matter of fact, we'll actually see a shita later on saying it's not too late. But after the carbon is brought, you don't get absolved for any essays that you're mavatal for the rest of your life. But the question is, after hafrasha, before the carbon is brought, what's it then? So we brought a brisa which says v'samach v'nirtza v'chaper olav. Right? The pasuk says v'samach yad al reisha olav v'nirtza lo chaper olav. So we said v'aloyin kapara l'dam. If he doesn't do the smicha, if he doesn't rest his hands on the carbon, it's as if he was mechaper and not mechaper. So he wanted to say, what does that mean? That he's mechaper on whatever he did before the hafrasha, and loy keeper, but the smicha, which is after hafrasha, he wouldn't get a kapar on. So this would answer our question that those essays that occur after the hafrasha, you don't get a kapara. So we're 6 lines from the bottom. Amarava essay this michavet shani also the whole kamal loy shachet but made v'samachkai. Emes kahavi essay lachashita leka mi bailan. This is talking about the essay is not going to be bottle until he shechs it, and once he shechs it, certainly no one is saying over here at least that he should get a kapara from the carbon that he already shechted, and he first is over on not doing smicha when he does the shechita. Amalei Rav Huna, so this is where this really brings up to our Amalei Rav Huna bar Yehuda l'Rava. Hi Rafal, we're on the bottom line of Vav Amid Aleph. So Amalei Rav Huna bar Yehuda l'Rava. Ema kipa gavra like kipa kabi shmaya. Let's understand. We want to still understand that brisa that we just said. What is it keeper v'loy keeper when he wasn't saymech yadei? So Gemara wants to suggest, what does it mean keeper v'loy keeper? A more traditional type of pshat, that it means that he gets his kapara. With the smicha is not ma'akev, and the lack of a smicha doesn't make it that he doesn't get a kapara for the carbon. That but he will lose his mitzvah of doing smicha. So like keep a shmai kamishmai is that the Rebbeinu Shalom is missing he didn't do the mitzvah. And we want to bring a raya that there is such a explanation that when it says when the Mishnah, when a brisa uses such a lashon of keeper v'lei keeper, it means that you are yaitza, it's kosher, but you didn't do the mitzvah the proper way. Tanan, milay tanan, v'hanoisa b'shemen asher kaf. So this is a pasuk that's talking about a mitzayra. When a mitzayra, after he's cured of his tzaras, he has to bring a karbanis, and then they do a matan shemen. So the pasuk says v'hanoisa b'shemen asher al kaf akayin. After you spritz the shemen on the 7 times, I think on the paroiches, and then he puts it on the bayin yadai v'bayin raglai hayemonis of the person who's a mitzayra on his ear and on his big toe and his thumb, and then afterwards, whatever oil is left over, the pasuk says, the rest of the shemen that was in the palm of the kayin, they put the shemen in the palm of the kayin. You don't rosh mitayr, you put it on the head of the mitar of the mitzayra. V'chipar alav kayin lifnei Hashem, and that will be mechaper. So zok the Mishnah. L'chaper alav lifnei Hashem. Im nasan keeper, v'im loy nasan loy keeper. Divrei Rebbe Kiva. Rebbe Kiva says if they didn't do this last nesina of shemen on the head of the mitzayra, he was not mechaper, and if he did it, he is mechaper, and if he didn't do it, he's not mechaper. That's Rebbe Kiva. Zevachim ben Uri Omer shiarei mitzvah, and he says this last nesina of shemen on the head of the mitzayra is an extra. It's a leftover mitzvah, meaning that it's not ma'akiv. Nitin ben shaloi bein nitin ben shaloi nitin keeper. Whether he put it on or not, he's going to get the kapara. He's going to be he's going to be kosher from his taras. But we treat him as if he wasn't mechaper. What does that mean? My kilu keeper. What does it mean? We treat him as if he was not mechaper. If you're saying that since he neglected to put on the shemen on the roish of the mitayr, he has to bring a new carbon. He was not yaitza. Amar bein nitamil. He didn't keep it. He just Reb Nachman ben Uri had already said that whether he did this, he's mechaper, and he got the shemen and the carbon did what it's supposed to do. Ella keeper gavel, keeper kavishmaya. The chayra means the same like we were trying to say over here, that we find this same formulation when the Mishnah says that he was mechaper and not mechaper. It means that he begrudgingly gets a kapara, but he didn't do what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants, because the Rebbeinu Shalom wants that there should be a nesinas shemen on his roish, just like the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted in our original brayso that there should be a smicha on the behem. Hachanami keeper over here also, when it says keeper like keeper, it means the same thing. Kapishmaya like keeper kamishmaya. Hasamnami keeper mad behind us like keeper matna. So zak the Gemara. No, it could be it's not a raya. It's not necessarily what it's talking about over there. It's not you're trying to bring a raya that keeper like keeper means that it was just b'diavad it's good, but he didn't do what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants. Hasam nami. What does it mean keeper? It means he's keeper on the matan behind us, the original matana of shemen that goes on the thumb and on the big toe and on the ear, so that he has accomplished. Like keeper matnas harosh. What Rabbi Yochanan ben Uri is saying, he did not get the he was not yoitza that which he has to put shemen on the roish of the mitzayra, so he's going to have to bring a new loig of shemen to do that. That's what it means. It doesn't mean to say, like we were trying to say, that it just he wasn't yoitza the mitzvah min hamuvcha the proper way. What it means is that Rabbi Yochanan ben Uri is saying that it doesn't disqualify the whole earlier carbon. Everything that he did before that is good, but he has to then go ahead and redo this last part. Whereas Rabbi Kiva holds that everything from the beginning is disqualified and he has to start from the beginning. So now we're back to our original question. Our original question was, is an oila mechaper on things that happened after the hafrasha of the behem? Tashma, Shimon, kifsei atzeres lo mahim bayin. Why do you bring the kifsei atzeres? In fact, the mar kifsei atzeres shlam mininu. Shimon was asking, what do they accomplish? What kapara do they provide? The Gemara says that they're shlamim. Shlamim are always brought as a nachas ruach for the Rebbeinu Shalom. They're not necessarily to be mechaper. Ela seirei atzeres. It's talking about the seirim that are brought on Shavuos. So what are they? Lamaheim bayin. What are they brought for? Al tumas mikdash ugdashav. They're brought to be mechaper on certain tumas that we had back in Shavuos. We went through all these things with all the way at the beginning of Shavuos, right? We went through the sequence of the different tumas that are mechaper by different karbanos. So these are also in that list of certain types of tumas mikdash ugdasha. So nizr dami. So how does it work? So what is this? What are the siyuri that Sarah's coming to? What are they coming to Muchapra? Nizr dami shal rishon. Sheni. The question is, after you are zayrik the dam of the rishon, sheni lama curve. What do you need the second sawyer? Once the first one was mechaper, what is the second one doing in addition? You don't need two carbonas. One carbon is enough. So what do you have? Two behemoths. So it must be al tumasha oira bein zeh lezeh. It must be that after you brought the first carbon, before you brought you shechted and brought the second carbon, any tumas mikdash that happened in between the time, that's what it's coming. There's no such thing as a carbon coming. You have two carbonas that do the exact same thing, then one is extraneous. So it must be that the second one has to cover some period of time by itself that it has a need. So it must be that it covers the period of time after the first seer was brought. It could be 5 minutes till the second one is brought. Really, Yidden could have had to been mechayiv to bring the carbon every minute, another one because of the possibility of tumas mikdash. The Torah did not require him to do it constantly. So the Gemara, so this is the chayra good raya to our question. Was saying, what is the reason? The Bryce is saying, what is the reason that you bring the second sawyer of Atzeres? It's to cover any tumas mikdash. It means the Torah, we sort of do like symbolically, we do two, even though really you should have to do every minute. Torah said do two. And the second one will cover for any interim tumas that happened after the first one was brought. But that was already, certainly after the hafrasha of the first one. The hafrasha happened a month before they separated the animals. So you see, I say la hafrasha kamachas. So you see that you can't be mechaper after the hafrasha of an oil. So tomorrow, no, it's not a raya. You would be right. If they were mafresh both of them at the same time, it would be true. We're talking about where he was mafresh them at different times. So therefore, the second one is helpful for the any tumas mikdash after the prisha of the other one. If we hold that the timer stops on what a carbon can do from the time that you mafresh it. So as soon as you mafresh the first one, the second one is no longer able to provide a kapara for any tumas mikdash that happens afterwards. So that's what the second one is providing. Where it says this is a little bit dachuk to say that the pasuk is limited. That the pasuk said that these karbanos are only needed where the second sar is only relevant where you brought them at different times. There was no mention of that. Amar Rapapa says a different point. Karbanos tzibur karmat. You want to bring a raya from karbanos tzibur that you see that it provides a kapara even after the afrasha. Shani karbanos tzibur the lev bezin kamasna lein. In general, whenever you mafresh a carbon tzibur, the bezin has a right to be masna. It should work in the proper way. So they're masna when you mafresh these carbon to be the seiri atzeres, that it shouldn't take effect. The hafrasha shouldn't take effect till right before you shecht it. So it will be able to be mechaper on any tumas mikdash that happened afterwards. We say legabe. This is in a different context. If you remember back in Shkolim, we learned about how they separated money in Nisan for the whole year's worth of karbanos, of tmidim, but sometimes at the end of the year they would have left over from the previous year, and those would become, I think they would be converted from tamids to being oilus that's l'kayetz hamizbeach. And we said, how do they get converted? How do you have an animal that was already set aside to be a tamid, and now there's no tamid to bring it for, that you becomes an oil? So we say there's a t'nai bezdin. When the bezdin separated it, they made a t'nai that they could later on change its designation. So when you shecht it, that automatically brings with it a change of its designation. So the same thing over here. There's a t'nai bezdin when you mafresh the seirei atzeres, that they're not going to immediately be hufresh, but they're going to become hufresh right before the shechita, so as to cover all the tumas mikdash that happened before that. And then that's why there's able to be a gap between the first one and the second one. After the first one is geshacht, and it's no longer able to be mechaper. So then the second one steps in, without bringing any raya to our question of whether karbanos can be mechaper after afresh. Amalei Rav Yosef Breder Rav Shmuel l'Rav Papa u'miyasel Rav Shimon lay bezdin masale. And you're saying this b'shem Rav Shimon, but Rav Shimon happens to be doesn't hold of this concept that bezdin reserves the right on karbanos tzibur to dictate how they're going to operate. But Amar Rav Yidi bar Rav and Amar Rav Amram, Amar Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav Yochanan, Tamidin shalei hutzur chulut tzibur. Tamidin that was what we were talking about before. Tamidin that were not necessary to be used in 1 year. L'divrei Rav Shimon, according to Rav Shimon, ein niftin tamimin. You cannot just immediately use them l'kayetz hamizbeach, but rather you're going to have to be royad sheyistov and then use the money. You have to be paid to them, but they themselves can't switch. So he does because he doesn't hold of this din of leiv bezdin maslin. The Chavim niftin to me, but the Chavim disagree and say you can. So how could you say Rav Shimon is the man the Amr who says that's the reason why you're going to bring the second carbon because of leiv bezdin maslin va'oid, and also on the original teretz that you had wanted to say that we wanted to say that we're talking about that you wanted to say that by the Kivsei Atzeres, the Sirei Atzeres, I'm sorry, that the reason why you made the second one is because it's going to be mechaper on any tumas mikdash that happens between the hafrasha of the first one and the hafrasha of the second. But frekta Gemara, haba minei Rav Yirmiyah Rav Zeres, Sirei Atzeres shekibel damim b'shnei kaises. If someone's makabel adam in two kaises, meaning they shech them both at the same time, and they makabel adam at the same time, the nizik dam shel rishon, and they were already zayrik the dam of the first one. Sheni lama huba. What is the second one you've been used for according to Reb Shimon? Right? We said that Reb Shimon was the man the Amr who says that is. So we're talking about where they were both geshachten at the exact same time. So there's no tumas that happened in between them. So he answered back, Al tumas sha'ir ben zrika shel zeh l'zrika shel zeh. It will work. Sha'ir ben zeh l'zeh. It's going to work on what happened, any tumah that happened between the two zrikas. So he holds that it's taka going to be, even though we said that it's not likely, but there's a mandam who's going to say even after the zrika, even after the shechita of the first carbon, but between the zrika, he holds, this mandam will hold, Rav Sheshes is going to hold, that according to Rav Shimon, you could have a kapara even after the shechita prior to zrika. So Zok Gemara, he certainly was maskim that after hafrasha you could do a kapara. So you can't say that when we to explain the brisa that when Rav Shimon said that lo mahem bayin, that it's talking about between the two hafrashas. Zok Gemara, no, it's not necessarily true. Maybe all he was saying is if it's true, he wasn't saying that it's definitely true that after hafrasha it could still be mechaper. He's saying if it's true that after hafrasha not mechaper, maybe it's not even going to be mechaper after the shechita until the zrika, and therefore it's coming to be Rav Shimon's coming to explain that it could be mechaper on the zrikas, on the tumas that occurred between the two zrikas. Okay, Yasha Kayach will stop over here. Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow